Russell Coyle. I'm a senior at RV. I have about 194 comic books, you know, Bleach, Shaman King, Naruto, Busou Renkin, Samurai Deeper Kyo, Rurouni Kenshin, Hikaru no Go, Bakuman, Death Note, Hellsing, you know, stuff like that. So it's pretty badass, if you ask me.
Alright, so what made you get into comic books?
I, you know, pretty much just got into them. I mean, I used to always watch Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid, so it just branched off from there as I grew up.
Alright, are you proud of being a nerd, or is it a little bit shameful for you to be such a huge fan of all these comic books?
Dude, for me, it's the best thing ever. I mean, I have like a 4.3 weighted GPA, so it's great being a nerd.
Why are you so intrigued by comic books?
Because I can get lost in like another world, you know? I mean, one second I can be a shaman 1 second, and the next second I can be writing criminals' names down in a death note, or being a badass samurai, you know? Pretty much. That's it. No, but it's also, you know, there's some hot chicks in comic books, and it's easier to make friends in comic books than it is in real life, you know? I can just sit back and relax and just get drawn into a new world and not be in my normal life, because I don't like socializing with normal people. I just like being by myself, and then, you know, I like hanging out with Kazuki and Orihime and whatnot.
In general, have comic books had a positive or negative impact on your life?
I would say it's definitely a positive impact. No, it's okay. No, that's okay. I got this. You know, I mean, throughout my life, I just get bored all the time, and comic books, you know, prevent me from being bored. I don't think there's really anything worse than being bored, so, you know, I mean, it gives me something to do when I'm, you know, on like Friday nights and Saturday nights. Pretty much all the time that normal teenagers would hang out with their friends, I just read comic books. And yeah, it just gives me a lot more to my life. I mean, without comic books, I don't really know what I'd do with myself. I'd probably just be a bum, so I'd probably start shooting up heroin.
In America, the first comics were the Famous Funnies that came out in 1933, and then soon after you had things like Superman, which really made comics popular. And then after that, you had the kind of golden age of comics in the 60s and 70s with things like Fantastic Four and Spider-Man.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Josh. This is actually my parents' house, because I'm a student over at CU Boulder. I'm actually a PhD candidate right now. As you can see, I have a bunch of comic books. There's a bunch of like manga and anime that I have as well, video games. There's probably around 300 comic books and maybe 200 manga that I have collected. Also, Rubik's Cube, kind of cool.
So how did you get into comic books, and what is the appeal to you?
Well, I've always been kind of a loner, never really too social. For me, comics were just kind of like the natural progression from the television Saturday morning cartoon shows, and basically I feel like I can connect more to this world. It's just kind of cool to think about places where people have superpowers and, you know, just more fantastic than what real life actually is.
So are you proud or ashamed to be a nerd?
Well, I can definitely say that I'm proud. I think before the term used to be a little bit pejorative, but it's kind of more like anachronistic now, where that's kind of out of the time frame that we live in. I think more people are kind of opening up to geeks and nerds. And I think it definitely takes up a lot of my time, but I'm proud that I have this amassed collection of stuff that I like.
Okay, and how does it affect your day-to-day life?
Basically, I think it just kind of takes over everything. I spend most of my money on comic books and going to conventions and whatnot. I think right now that's definitely the only bad part, because I spend almost all of my money on that and nothing else.
Alright. So, have you found anybody with common interests as you that you could probably be friends with or get along with?
Not really. I think most people don't really like the same things, or they're not as into comics as I am. I mean, sure, you go to cons and find people there, but they're not like people I would hang out with. So, not really. Basically, more than that, I think what I would say is that people like Cable, Iron Man, Straw Hat Luffy, those guys are actually my friends, not real people.
Well then, how would you spend your free time? Besides reading comic books, obviously.
Well, other than reading comic books and watching movies based off of comic books, I basically play with the Rubik's Cube. I collect trading cards and play those. But probably the thing I'm into right now is I play chess by myself. I just find that I'm the most competitive player for me. And I think that's the easiest way that I can basically improve my own skills.
Okay, well, thank you.
Manga are Japanese comics, and they've existed since the late 1800s, but in their modern form they've been around since the 40s, and they became popular in America because of all those Japanese anime shows like Dragon Ball and Pokemon that helped bridge the gap into the world of manga and made it easier for Americans to get into it, and it was more accessible.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Andrew. I'm 30 years old. I've been working in comic shops for about 12 years now. I've worked at this shop for 5, and I basically run everything, like, everything that has to do with comics I do. I have about 40 long boxes in my personal collection, but I haven't collected for some years now because it's just too much.
And then approximately how many would be 40 long boxes? Could you give us a rough approximate of how many individual comics that would be?
Let's see here. It's probably about 9,000. Yeah, it's
You have
crazy.
9,000 comic
Yeah.
books? Oh my gosh. Alright. How have comic books affected your life?
Well, so I started reading when I was like 8 years old, you know what I mean? And like, those were my friends, those were my heroes, you know? And then I like gravitated towards people that also loved comics, you know, and like formed some some lasting relationships with that and that sort of stuff. And then obviously, like, I liked it so much that it's what I do now, you know what I mean? It's like how I make money. And then also, like, I draw a lot because of it, you know what I mean? Like, I do all sorts of art stuff because of comics and because I love them. It doesn't occupy as much of my time anymore just because, like, working with it, that's 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? You don't really want to bring that home. But I still read a bunch of stuff. I still read almost everything that comes out. Don't enjoy as much of it anymore just because there is so much, and there's a lot of stuff out there that it's just being put out to make money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, the stories aren't that good, or the art's not that good. But yeah, it's always been a big part of my life and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Do you think that comic books are getting more mainstream than they were before?
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that they're a lot more acceptable now. You know, like, you can sit on a bus station and, like, read a comic book and nobody's going to judge you or anything. Or, like, at a coffee shop, you know. Especially with, like, television and movies and that sort of stuff. It's just, everybody knows these characters now.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but it's also one of those things, like, well, I was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Not the beginning, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I've always loved this. So, you know, you'll, like, be wearing a Spider-Man shirt or something. People will be like, oh, Spider-Man, I love that movie. I'm like, well, it's a comic, but you're good. You got this.
Are you proud or ashamed to be such a huge fan of comic books?
I'm definitely proud of it. You know, like, when I was younger, and the culture wasn't so big as it is now, like, yeah, I was ashamed, you know what I mean? I was just a fat little kid, just, like, reading comics and being picked on. But, you know, you don't hear about that anymore, you know? People are finally starting to realize, like, how cool this stuff is, you know what I mean? And, like, how great these stories are, and, like, how much imagination and thought goes into this stuff. So you have people that have never read comics, and they'll come up to you and be like, oh man, you have to tell me everything about this. So you get a lot of people that are super excited about it now. Whereas before, yeah, they were just like, they would look down on you for it.